Hey everyone! It sure has been a while since my last video, but Realm has gone through a few major changes that have impacted the character balance that I normally discuss here. Realm has also had a bunch of events recently, and those have been eating away at my free time, plus the real world has been less than pleasant. However, Deca recently teased a new character, and that piqued my interest. I want to use my channel to theorycraft two new characters. Right now, there are two classes missing from the roster. A heavy armored wand class, and a second heavy armored katana class. This would leave 6 classes for each armor, and 3 for each weapon. Nice and even, just the way I like it. However, a second class that works like the samurai with heavy armor and a katana will be a little bit tricky since we already have something there. So instead today, I want to focus on the more interesting wand and heavy armor combo. So now I want to introduce what I'm calling the Battlemage, or shaman, warlock. Well, whatever it's called, it's a class designed to use heavy armor and a wand. High range, yet high defense. So when designing this character, I wanted to address two concerns. First, the class needs to have a reason to have both its high range and its high defense. Second, I wanted the class to gain just as much benefit from wisdom and mana as it does from dexterity and attack. All classes now gain more from a honey circlet than a coral ring. Crown is a top tier item, while gemstone is usually just feed power. The Orc's Sanctuary accessories, meant to be the best rings in the game, don't even give any wisdom at all, and only one of them even has a mana boost. I think it would be nice to see more characters that could even the playing field. That said, I think both of these concerns can be addressed with the ability. I propose that the Battlemage's ability is a sort of elemental flamethrower. The Battlemage would wear a headdress that grants them elemental powers. See, holding down your ability button would work like a shuriken or crystal shield. Mana would be drained every second, but instead of buffing you, it would produce a short-range blast that would heavily damage nearby enemies. With low range, this would encourage players to have to get in close, so they would actually have to use their heavy armor. When needed though, the Battlemage could always just back out and then start focusing on wand damage while they regenerate mana for their next burst of really high DPS. Ideally, the headdress would actually replace shots from the weapon, so firing your weapon would actually shoot your ability rather than your weapon while active. I've seen bugs where people would use something like their spell bomb in their weapon slot, and I always thought that was a really cool idea if that could actually be used practically. And making it less overpowered would be awesome too. What's more, headdresses could be given a high wisdom modifier, again, to encourage players to focus on items like Bloodshed Ring and Rezu over a Mercies and a Crown. Now, I want to quickly go over the tiered headdresses as well as a few untiered headdresses that we could have available on launch. I should mention that these numbers are not set in stone. I don't currently know how an ability that replaces your weapon would actually work, so it's definitely possible that the ability might just have to fire separately and would then need some major adjustments to balance it out. So with that little disclaimer in mind, let's start jumping into some of these headdresses. First, we have the Beaver Skin headdress at tier 0. This blasts enemies with a surge of cold water. As you can see, it fires 3 shots and armor pierces. I wanted to use multiple shots so it feels more like a flamethrower, and I let it armor pierce so that's lower damage per shot wouldn't be completely ignored by anything with defense. Next up is the Feathered headdress. This blasts enemies with a chilling rush of wind. It has higher damage, but drains even more mana per second. Then, we have the Buckskin headdress. This headdress is made from the pelt and antlers of a small deer, and it channels cold blasts of autumn air. Again, this has a higher mana drain in exchange for its higher damage. I should also note that headdresses uniquely offer extra mana upon equipping. Mana is the only stat that isn't currently increased by a tiered item, and its high mana drain without robes means that Battlemage really wants all of the mana it can get, so that way it can keep pushing out damage. The next headdress is the Dire Wolf headdress. Taken from the body of a large dire wolf, this headdress allows the user to channel the spirits of wolves and weaponize them. Again, more damage and a higher passive mana, but at the cost of a higher mana drain. Now keep in mind that these values only reflect a Battlemage with 50 wisdom. This is where I think the cutoff should be for its wisdom modifier, so as you get more than 50, it'll actually go up. Up next, we have the Buffalo headdress at tier 4. Although usually gentle, these large beasts are a force to be reckoned with. Wearing this headdress allows the Battlemage to summon a raging stampede of cold air that plows through even the toughest of enemies. At tier 5, we have what I think is a charmingly ugly headdress. The Iceclops headdress is made from the pelt and skull of a Tundra Cyclops, also known as an Iceclops. Battle mages can channel power from the pelt and blast enemies away with small chunks of ice. The tier 6 headdress is the Polar Bear headdress. Similar to others, this blasts enemies with a rush of freezing cold air, channeled straight from the coldest regions in Oryx's realm. Because tier 6 is possibly the most common tier for gameplay, I thought this deserved the most focus. Now, real quick, the way I see it, headdresses could use a Wizmod that's somewhat similar to the following. Again, exact numbers are not going to be perfect. If your wisdom is 50 or less, the damage is just exactly as listed here. However, if your wisdom is above 50, the damage is as listed, plus an additional 2/3 damage per wisdom. With that, let's go on to the tier 7 headdress. Now, the Exalted Oryx drop should actually be pretty strong. For the tier 7, we have an Arctic Drake headdress. This terrifying creature's breath could freeze large prey within seconds. With this headdress, the Battle Mage is able to harness a fraction of that power and chill even the strongest of Oryx's minions. Here, you can see just how terrifying a Battle Mage can be up close. At its base, the Arctic Drake headdress deals about 65 damage per shot. With an extra 2/3 damage per wisdom after 50 and a base 65 wisdom, this can really add up fast, though you do need to be much closer than the sorcerer to actually get this damage. Once again, guys, I do want to just say that things are not completely balanced in this yet. It would definitely take a lot more playtesting and people who are more knowledgeable than me to sort of tweak this character a little bit. Here you can see the DPS chart for Priest, Battle Mage, and Sorcerer. I also wanted to show what the DPS looked like with a tier 6 ability on an 8/8 Battle Mage. Something that I think is great about doing this is that damaging in Berserk would still affect the damage output, so you don't lose any effectiveness by using this ability while in the group. Now, with that said, let's jump back and look at some untiered headdresses that we could add. So first, we have the Floral headdress. This is meant for newer players and could maybe drop from something like a Forest Maze or Great Coil Snakes, something early game. It wouldn't have the best damage output, but it could give some new players some extra vitality just to kind of help them along. Next, we have the Snow Owl Cowl. It's actually more of a mask than a cowl, but I really like the alliteration. Anyways, this would be sort of a mid-game headdress. Its damage isn't quite as good as a tier 6, but it would offer a little extra bulk and range, and the damage would be good enough. Finally, I wanted to add a top tier DPS item with the Wendigo headdress. Now, this would offer extra attack and speed to help make the Battle Mage stronger overall. However, the extra damage would come at a cost, because like the Crystal Shield, you actually wouldn't be able to regenerate mana while the ability is active. This means it would have a longer downtime, but actually having higher mana could really pay off with this item. Fortunately though, it still offers a passive attack bonus that works both on and off cooldown to help you out when you can't use the ability. This means you don't have to worry about becoming useless when you run out of mana. Now, real quick before I end the video, I do want to go over the Battle Mage's potential stats. As you may have guessed from my rebalancing HP video, I think as a wand class, it should have just 670 HP. Its survival is made more by its defense and range than its HP. Anything extra would just be too much. Now, its mana is a bit trickier. So far, only robe classes have 385 mana, but I think 252 isn't quite enough for this character. I'd like to see it have that higher 385 mana, but its ability already gives some passive mana, so it's really not the end of the world if it does only have 252. Attack and dexterity should be 60 and 65 respectively. I want it to have more wand damage than a priest, but still much less than a sorcerer, as it's a bit lower risk if you aren't going deep. Speed should probably be just 50. Although pushing in deep would be very nice for its ability, I don't know if it really needs that stat. Maybe give it 55 speed at most, but really any extra speed it should get should probably come from its gear, not from its stats. Defense should just stay at 25. It already has great armor and great range. Any more, again, would be overkill. Vitality should be 50. It's a bit higher than the normal 40, but it does need to get close much more often than some of the other range classes. On the other hand, I don't want to give it too much vitality, because unlike some of the other melees, it really can choose to stay back if it wants to. Wisdom should be 65. This is a smart class, well tuned to nature, even if it is crushing nature under its will, and it loves the extra damage from more wisdom. However, wisdom isn't essential, and it shouldn't be quite as high as some of the characters who actually use their abilities more strategically. So, that's it. Regardless of the actual balance and how that plays out, I had a lot of fun brainstorming this character, as well as the next one. Even if it isn't perfect, I think a wand class with heavy armor and a short range, flamethrower-like ability would actually be pretty cool. Hopefully you guys agree, and who knows, maybe Deca will sit on this idea and maybe try it out in testing. Anyways, that's all for me today. What do you think? Do you like this idea? I'd love to see people share this and make their own improvements to it, especially if you're someone who can actually make decent sprites. So what's next? Well, I have plans for another character on the way. Maybe you guys would prefer that. Otherwise, I've been thinking about making a video about rebalancing tiered bows, and maybe another one about rebalancing classes like the rogue. Let me know what you guys want to see. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.